the series, we're going to look at the platform setup for several of the tools that I mentioned and why certain choices were made around how the data is structured and what the plan is to use this data. Now, in your implementations, these things may vary. You may already have certain data setups that you need to adhere to, or you may need to make some adjustments throughout the process. That can be determined and implemented as needed. But this is a good reference architecture, if you will, as to how you would build workflow like this. In the last presentation, I discussed several buzzwords and terms that you've probably seen recently or over the last few years. Composable architecture, data modeling in the CRM, and content management, in particular modular content, vector database, and retrieval augmented generation. Those will all be covered as part of this data setup. So let's get started. The first thing you're seeing here is HubSpot. And HubSpot has many workloads here beyond just the CRM. Perform some marketing and perform service. It can even host pages, and it has workflow too. My composable architecture, I've decided to constrain it to one job, which is I need to know about the folks that I'm contacting, who they work for, and what they own in terms of, in this case, it's a membership entitlement. So this is important for what I modeled. I don't need this to host a web page. I don't need to sell anything. There are other platforms in the roadmap that will handle that for me. Now, your organization may have grown in a similar way, collecting platforms and integrating them in different ways. And figuring that out is part of what my framework does. So let's take a look at some of the data. We'll start with contacts. So again, these are the people I'm going to call, email, text, and so forth. So there's a lot of test contacts generated here. I used AI to generate everything in this data model and then created a few extra things manually so I could set it up exactly how I wanted. There's also companies. And this is where the membership resides. So we'll go into this manufacturer and we'll see that it has a membership plan of which I have 3 levels configured. It's in the middle with a plus, and there's a renewal coming up. A few other pieces of information I added are some about us information that I modeled after a similar manufacturer. And I also placed in the description to just show an example of how you might capture recent events and feed that to AI to get a more personalized and contextual response of maybe what the industry is facing at the time you reach out to the contact. Let's go back to the contact and point out some other attributes here that are set up. We have last engagement score, which I'm using to determine as part of the algorithm for what is at risk. In this scenario, we are trying to contact this person for renewal and they are not responding. So we need our tools to spring into action and help drive some engagement. Now, each of the memberships, they run 1 year and they're modeled as deals. And a deal has a life cycle similar to, you may call it an opportunity in your CRM. And I could have accessed those deals that you probably saw on the right from the contact or in this large list over here. So last year, I signed up for the Plus membership, but now this year, we need to get a renewal. And the deal is stalled in this sort of mid-funnel stage. Okay, so that is uh, the CRM setup that is modeled. Let's take a look at Contentstack. So this is going to be our CMS, and I have 6 content types in this stack here. So let's take a look at the different content types. There are several types here. I mentioned the concept of modular content, where we tried to get content down to an atomic unit, which helps us with other advanced techniques downstream like personalization, translation, A/B testing, and all those things. If you have your content all organized together as one giant block, then it's hard to break it apart and build out channel engagement for different presentations, whether it's social or web or email. So in this structure, each one is broken down, and it starts with the membership plan where there's the 3 levels. And as part of each of those plans, there are benefits. And there's also policy document, which has a greater level of detail as to what the company is entitled. And for future demos, there are FAQs, which will help support a chatbot experience. And there are promotions, which we could incorporate with self-service commerce when we bring that platform in. Let's take a look at some of the test data here. So here are all the entries. And we'll take a look at the Plus plan, which you saw one of the companies was signed up for. And there's a description here and the cost. And there's also some keywords for search. And we'll come back to this later when we look at Pinecode and retrieval augmented generation. Let's take a look at some of the benefits. These are really key for marketing content because it helps communicate what the value is to the customer. So there are different benefits here, and they're itemized, and some of them only pertain to certain plans. So when you're walking customer through why they might want to upgrade, you've got all the content available here to generate that information or react to sentiment in certain ways. That would be faster than traditional methods. Finally, there's a playbook which will be used, which has information around how you would empower a sales rep, for instance, to overcome this at-risk scenario. And this is going to be a key piece of the nurturing campaign and workflow that we run. And there's a lot of information here about how to craft the email. And there's also the concept of explainability, which is another buzzword I hadn't mentioned yet, which is when we use AI to generate recommendations, we tell the person why those recommendations are there. So that's a really helpful pattern. Okay, so that's Contentstack setup. Again, modular marketing content controlled by marketers, on brand, and in a taxonomy that supports overcoming objections and communicating value and improving the customer experience and satisfaction.